It was the scientific marvel of the century, a mighty juggernaut to blast through the solid rock of the Earth's mantle
at a rate of 78 feet per minute.
Grand-scale adventure from the world's favorite writer of fascinating fiction, Edgar Rice Burroughs, at the Earth's core, the astounding discovery of a strange, forbidding land.
Only seen it before in fossilized form.
A primeval nightmare world whose shadows hid the nameless terrors that were yet to come. Humans of another age, chained in bondage by an army of ape men, preyed upon by monstrous giants.
Now I fear that Hoojah the Sly One will lead Jubal the Ugly One back here.
I heard about him.
David, he will kill you.
Behind a barrier of molten lava, an empire of evil, an inferno ruled by winged creatures like guardians of the gates of hell, a host of Satans, nourished by the flesh of sacrificial maidens. Starring Doug McClure, Peter Cushing, Caroline Munro. Take the most terrifying journey of your life. Edgar Rice Burroughs at the Earth's core.
We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I know they're going to catch me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me.
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that's...
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're going to make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first.
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Thanks for joining us for American International Podcast. I'm Jeff Markin.
And I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
In this episode, we are going to be doing some deep digging into At the Earth's Core from 1976.
At the Earth's Core was directed by Kevin Connor from a screenplay by Milton Subotsky. It's based on At the Earth's Core by Edgar Rice Burroughs. It was produced by John Dark, Max Rosenberg, and Milton Subotsky for Amicus Productions, and distributed by American International Pictures.
At the Earth's Core stars Doug McClure as David Innes, Peter Cushing as Dr. Abner Perry, Caroline Munro as Princess Dia, Cy Grant as Ra, Godfrey James as Ghak, the Elder Slave, Sean Lynch as Hoojah, the Sly One,
Keith Barron as Dowsett, Helen Gill as Maisie, Anthony Verner as Gadsby, Robert Gillespie as photographer, Michael Crane as Jubal, the Ugly One, Bobby Parr as Sagoth Chief, and Andee Cromarty as Girl Slave.
The movie opens with the sounds of some synthesized music. And what we see appears to be molten lava, but is it?
Well, it's flowing like a river under the credits. It splashes into a puddle as the stirring theme begins. And then I realize, oh, we're in a foundry. We're not at the Earth's core, not yet. Sir Abner Perry, who is played by Peter Cushing, is supervising the manufacture of his boring machine. No, really, it's a machine that bores into the earth.
A whistle blows. Is it quitting time? No, this is a train whistle. And we find ourselves whisked away to a christening ceremony for the Iron Mole.
A marching band plays for the enthusiastic crowd. A woman named Maisie asks David Innes, who's played by Doug McClure, if she can come along on this maiden voyage of the Iron Mole. And he says no, she can't. And then another man, whose name is Dowsett, tells David that he plans to race the Iron Mole as it bores through the mountain with his horse and carriage. And David takes that bet.
David, it seems, is a former student of Dr. Perry's, and David will be accompanying him on this journey. And he gets to do this because David was the financier for this whole endeavor.
They break out the champagne, but they don't take any of it because they need to have all their faculties with them as they drive through the mountain. Dr. Perry says the Iron Mole, as everyone else is calling it, is actually a high-calibrated digging machine. As he talks to a reporter, we find out that today is merely a test. And the reporter asks if eventually the plan is to drill down and explore the bowels of the earth. David says that we've been on top of the earth long enough, it's time to find out what's underneath.
There's a gathered crowd cheering to wave them off. David takes a puff on his cigar and waves back before entering the mole. Dr. Perry is already in there and anxious to get going. He has David extinguish his cigar until they're underway.
They seat themselves in front of the controls as Perry runs a check of all the settings. They start the machine up, and the man who made the bet with David prepares to leave.
The crowd outside is starting to get antsy, but they know they have to continue waving until the iron mole is finally on its way.
The digging noise starts to spin, and they're off. But immediately things start to go crazy. They back out and try again, and this time they're more successful.
Much to the relief of the crowd outside, who is finally able to disperse.
The machine starts going too fast, and it's all downward. They can't pull up, because they're supposed to go across, like through the mountain, not under the Earth's core. The heat inside the cockpit increases, and Doc Perry passes out. David is thrown from his seat, and he too is unconscious. But the iron mole digs on without their help.
Before too long, David comes to, and he is able to revive the doctor. Dr. Perry puts his glasses back on, but he can't see anything. They're frosted over. The temperature here is surprisingly cold.
Oh, there's a map that tracks their progress, and we can see on that they're almost to the Earth's inner core. They change course, which raises the temperature a bit, but then they find themselves in an underground lake. All seems to be going well until they collide with something, and the power goes out. Dr. Perry calls this very disappointing, and he blames the trip through the lake for the equipment failing.
David lights up his stogie again and suggests they go out and see where they ended up. Dr. Perry wants to grab his umbrella because the weather seems so changeable here.
They exit. Apparently there's an atmosphere, so no worries there. They find themselves in a lush tropical jungle with magenta skies and prehistoric plant life everywhere. They figure out they aren't on the other side of the mountain. It should be obvious. They aren't even on Earth. No, they're under it. But there's no time to explore.
No, because just then, a Psittacosaurus, which is a 9-foot-tall bipedal parrot, comes trudging towards them. David and Dr. Perry decide it doesn't look too friendly, so they flee.
David leads the way as Dr. Perry stumbles along behind him. David has to come back and grab him and hurry him along, though. Then Perry climbs up some jungle foliage. Then he uses his umbrella to stab at the Psittacosaurus. David tries to distract the giant killer bird, which was having a go at Perry. After getting its attention, David runs and the bird follows. He's doing all right, though. Even though the bird is right behind him, it's really just a rear projected image. But then he makes the mistake of running into a pool of quicksand. Amateur.
As Dr. Perry climbs down from his tree, the Psittacosaurus begins pacing around the quicksand. Then suddenly many spears are thrown at the Psittacosaurus, and a rope is thrown to David. Seeing it's under attack, the Psittacosaurus retreats. As Dr. Perry makes it to the ground, he hears the strange voices of the Sagoth, a proto-humanoid.
Upon hearing the strange chittering, Dr. Perry says, "Oh dear," and then he's surrounded by the Sagoth, these pig-faced creatures who act as the enforcers in this world. The two of them are captured by these primitive and humorless creatures. They put them in chains and lead them to where they have other human captives, also chained up.
Dr. Perry finds it interesting that the intelligently inferior, referring to the Sagoth, seems to be the dominant race here. The chain gang is led off as the Psittacosaurus watches from a safe distance. As they're forced on their way, Dr. Perry notices that the person in front of them bears a striking resemblance to Caroline Munro, and they should introduce themselves, because if you find someone that looks like Caroline Munro circa 1976, you shoot your shot.
Oh, definitely. So having started with the loveliest human who had been eyeing them with interest, they say their names, and she says hers. It's Dia. David asks about another captive who's been looking back at them a lot, and not happily. She tells them this is Hoojah, the sly one. Do not trust him. So he's probably bad. Finally, they get to sit for a moment after marching for a very long time. But the guards still come by and thunk them every once in a while.
David says that by his watch, they've been traveling for 2 days. And Dr. Perry explains that it would always appear to be daylight because they are, in essence, in a cave, and what appears to be a daylit sky is, in actuality, magma, some 20 miles above them. He doesn't offer an explanation as to what might be keeping it up there, though.
But after David flashes his watch, the Sagoths steal it. And David tries to start something, but Perry tells him to save his strength. They ask Dia who these creatures are, and she says, they are the Sagoth, who are the soldiers of the Mahar, who rule Pellucidar. The Sagoth take us to be slaves in their city. That's a lot of information for just a couple of sentences. Then Hoojah comes over them and he tries to start something, but David quickly drops him. Now everyone is staring at David, and not happily either. After a few beats, one of the older male captives pulls Dia away from David, and then they move on. Something very significant has happened here. We just don't know what it is yet. A few seconds later, a man at the head of the chain gang gets snatched up by a Megacerops, a bipedal dinosaur that starts to eat him, or, well, the mannequin that we're supposed to believe is him.
I'm not sure how it managed to sneak up on them. It's large and it's loud. But as the Sagoth and the slaves all take cover, another Megacerops comes to battle the first. They fight to the death, and the winner goes off to find another meal.
Now that the coast is clear, everyone can move on again. Then the professor deduces that they are approaching the city of the Mahars, but it just looks like a cave to me, so he might be using his imagination a little. David tries to ask Dia how far they have to go, but she's not speaking to him, and actually no one is. The Sagoth press the gang into the cave.
Dr. Perry says he doesn't feel he can go on much longer. David helps to hold him up and pulls him on through. They end up in a chamber, and everyone sits, and it's at this point that David notices that Dia is missing.
He asks the old man where she is, and he informs David that Hoojah took Dia away because of the major faux pas that David committed. He fought Hoojah for Dia, and having won, she belonged to him, but he never claimed her or released her. By doing nothing, he showed contempt for her, and now no man can take her as mate until David is defeated in combat. David said he had no idea. He thought he was just protecting her. And the old man admits that he had no way of knowing what their ways are. He gives Dia's backstory. Jubal, the ugly one, with the strength of many men, claimed her for his mate. No man could defeat him and save her, so Dia fled to the hills, only to be captured by the Sagoth.
He goes on to explain that Dia is a princess, and that even if David were to find her again, which he won't, she would never forgive him for the way he treated her. But that's only so important because they're all destined to be slaves now anyway.
Now it's time to press on. At the threshold of the cavern is a fire fountain. It's actually a gate. When the drawbridge is up to this entrance, fire comes up from the bottom and lava rains down from above, making it impassable. But when the drawbridge lowers, it cuts off the flow of lava and fire, allowing them to pass.
The drawbridge is lowered, and the slaves are led across the bridge, after which it is then raised again, causing the fire to rise and fall again, trapping the slaves in this new room.
Now they're in a large, somewhat foggy cavern. When the fog clears, Perry is astounded to spot a Rhamphorhynchus from the Middle Jurassic. It's large and in charge here, though. This is the Mahar. It turns its hideous, beaked face from side to side as it scans the crowd. Then it emits a siren-like shriek, and one of its eyes starts glowing green. It seems to be communicating psychically with the Sagoth.
With the command of a blink from one of the Mahar, the Sagoth bring forth the female slaves. A second blink has them gather the elder slaves, which includes Dr. Perry. "You're beginning to annoy me," says Dr. Perry as he's pushed off through a corridor.
Then everyone but the three women are herded off to a molten lava workstation of some kind. We see David sitting there shirtless, monitoring the lava pool for some reason. It's kind of hard to tell what they're doing, but it involves putting rocks in lava. Maybe they just need more of it.
Then we see in another chamber that Dr. Perry has been assigned the more cushy job of librarian. He gets to read scrolls, and he learns of the telepathic powers of the Mahar. They have mesmeric powers and a high degree of telepathy. He says it's quite a combination for a bird.
Later at dinner, David wonders what they're eating, but then he thinks it might be better not to know. David wants to know how to get out of there. Perry thinks, from his readings, that it has to do with the heat. The whole slave operation is to keep the lava flowing through the chamber.
Then the chattering Sagoth come back into the cell and start gathering slaves again. David manages to get out of their grasp and escape, slamming the cell door closed behind him and trapping the Sagoth inside with all the other slaves, including Dr. Perry.
I'm sure they're really grateful to David for that.
He rushes down the corridor, but comes to an abrupt stop when he reaches the drawbridge and the fire curtain.
With no way to get through the lava gate, he looks around. He finds a small tunnel. It exits to some kind of psychedelically glowing cavern. He takes a chalk-like rock to mark his way. Arrows point to the way that he's heading. Eventually, he finds himself outside, where he's blinded by the purple skies. He hasn't seen daylight, if that's what you want to call it, in quite some time.
The sounds of the various creatures of Pellucidar ring through the air. David sees a campfire with something roasting on a spit. He goes to it and grabs the food, hungrily taking a bite. And almost immediately, the creator of the campfire jumps him. The two of them silently wrestle for a while.
They find themselves in another weird cave. This one has living plants. One looks like a glowing Venus flytrap. The plants attack the two wrestlers. The other man becomes entwined in the creature's tentacles, and David, who could just walk away, instead frees him. This act makes them friends forever.
They introduce themselves, and we learn that this new character is Ra. David explains that he just escaped the Mahar City, and Ra says no. No one can escape from the Mahar City. They are all knowing. David asks why they have never fought back, and Ra says the Mahar are evil, and they can't fight that. David insists that if the people were to band together, they could overtake the Mahar. Ra says, yeah, that sounds all well and good, but come with me and I'll show you how wrong you are.
He takes David into another freaking cave where they find the outer wall of the Mahar grotto. Ra tells David to climb up, and they ascend to an upper level, then crawl through a tunnel to observe the Mahar arena. Now 4 women are standing there. David looks for Dia, and he's relieved to find that she's not one of them. The Mahar issue a piercing call. One of the women separates herself from the others and kneels in the center of the arena, while the other 3 women cower together.
Then one of the Mahar takes flight, diving down to pick up the woman, and drags her off to wherever Mahar take their slave women. Back to the nest, maybe? The other women start to scream as the other Mahar drag them off as well.
David sees all this, and he is incandescent with rage. He says they've got to be destroyed. They've got to be. David picks up a large rock to hurl at the Mahar. Ra grabs his arm to stop him and unbalances David. David falls, slamming his shoulder into a wall as he lands on a platform.
David's lying on the ground holding his shoulder as Ra motions toward the remaining sleeping Mahar. David climbs up toward them and slips out through a hole near one of the sleeping Mahar. Ra heads back outside and meets David. David says that he's going back. Ra thinks he's crazy, going back after what he's just seen, but David says it's because of what he's seen that he has to go back. And he says he will bring Ghak back with him. Ghak is the elder slave whose name we failed to mention before.
Well, we didn't know it yet. Ra says Ghak will not trust him. No tribe trusts each other. David tells Ra to return to his village till the Mahar come, but Ra will not let David go alone. They are friends now. And hearing that, David says that we've just doubled our strength. They tunnel back to the Mahar cavern, and Perry sees them and is shushed immediately, as he says, David. At that, they are immediately recaptured.
In the main chamber with the Mahar, all the slaves are gathered when David and Ra are brought in by the Sagoth. Dr. Perry waves when he sees his friend. Everyone is standing around waiting for the Mahar to decide what to do.
The Sagoth get their orders. They chain Ra to a stone post. They give David a spear. And then we hear another beast start growling. Now we meet a new creature. It pokes its head out of a cage, then fully emerges. It kind of looks like a hippo that breathes fire. But it's called a lato, and David has to fight it. But he can't really get a good angle at it. He's trying to stab into its mouth, but that doesn't do any good. And then the creature just snaps the spearhead off the pole. All the while, Ra has been yelling at him to stab it in the ear.
Eventually, David does stab it in the ear with his broken spear. The Mahar cry out, and one flies at David. At this point, Ra manages to free himself from his post, and he charges the Mahar that was about to attack David. The 2 of them fight as David just stands by watching. Ra manages to wrap his chains around the Mahar's throat and strangles it dead. Then the slaves all run, including David and Dr. Perry.
This inspires all the humans to cry freedom and rush out of the cage. Ra tries to show them out of the cave the non-lava blocked way. Some of them do get away. The Sagoth, under command of the Mahar, get a few stuck at the lava gate.
Dr. Perry tells David that he's found their secret, and he takes them to a control room of sorts.
In this room, there are a couple of workers behind the controls. There's another pool of lava, I guess, there. Perry tells David that this is where every Mahar is born. He points to something hanging from the ceiling and says, "See that winch? It controls the fire curtain." David says that this is where we're going to destroy them. Then they leave, escaping through the tunnel.
David is following the marks he left on the walls earlier, but he misses one when Dr. Perry stops to rest, and they end up going down the wrong corridor. They still have to find a way out, though.
By pure luck, they've ended up outside the cave anyway, but in a different location. They're on a cliff now. On another cliff nearby, Dia and Hoojah are there. She screams as Hoojah points his spear at her. That's not their only problem, though. A mastodonsaurus is breathing great gouts of fire at them. David shouts at Dia to wait for him as Hoojah slinks away, scared.
David leaps over to rescue Dia. He puts himself between her and the mastodonsaurus, and he picks up a large boulder with which to defend himself. But as Dr. Perry comes to the rescue, he has fashioned a bow and arrow and is slinging arrows at the mastodonsaurus. One connects, sending the mastodonsaurus flying to the ground where it explodes in a ball of flame.
What is it, a Ford Pinto? Now David must make amends with Dia. She doesn't want to hear him, though. Perry tells him to be masterful, and David makes her sit down and listen. She says that it's too late. She fears that Hoojah the Sly One will go to the village and bring Jubal back with him, and he'll be able to find her. David says that he heard about Jubal, and Dia says Jubal will kill David. But David's not afraid, and he kisses her, much to Dia's surprise. Doc Perry gives David his weapon back. He's got a tomahawk, and he gathers his bow and arrows. He's really excited to use these primitive weapons. David asks, brains before brawn? And Perry says, a combination of both, and flexes his muscle. They say they're going to find Jubal the ugly one, but there's no need to look. He's right there.
Dia tries to stop David from confronting him, but this is something David has to do. Dr. Perry raises his bow, but David tells him to stand down. This is David's fight. As David approaches Jubal, a spear is thrown and is embedded in a tree behind him.
Jubal has some sort of multi-bladed weapon that looks like a mace with a lot of sharpened cutting bits to it. David only has his tomahawk, so he's mostly avoiding Jubal's blows, though he gets in a few gut punches here and there. Meanwhile, Hoojah is sneaking up behind Dia and the doctor. He grabs Dia and holds a lance to her throat. I think it's a lance, it's just a long, pointy blade with a short handle. Dr. Perry tries to make Hoojah unhand her by raising his bow and arrow and aiming it at Hoojah.
As the battle continues, David clubs Jubal in the back with a big stick. Jubal falls into a patch of mushroom, raising a big cloud of mushroom dust.
A mushroom cloud, if you will.
David pulls the spear from the tree and then charges into the dust cloud. We hear the sound of a cry, and David comes out as the dust clears. Then Jubal falls forward with a spear in his belly.
And thus dies.
Hoojah still has Dia, and Perry is pointing his arrow towards him. Hoojah, realizing he no longer has any backup, throws Dia towards Perry. Perry shoots an arrow towards the fleeing Hoojah, but he misses. So, at least for the moment, David, Dr. Perry, and Dia are safe, which means it's the perfect time for Ra and Ghak to come out of hiding and join them.
Well, maybe they just got there. We don't know. Ghak says that since David defeated Jubal, Dia is now his. But David says not until they defeat the Mahar. The psychic and telepathic Mahar have heard this, though.
So now, David and Dr. Perry and Dia have joined everyone else in the village. Dr. Perry has fashioned a lot of bows and arrows and is giving archery lessons to the people of Pellucidar.
Now it's time to rally the tribes. Perry is training with his troops, and Ra gets his tribe on board with a stirring speech. Now it's time to strategize. David gives everyone their assignments. Doc and Ra will be the ones to destroy the Mahar incubator thingy. Dia wants to help, but David tells her to be a good girl and stay at home. Taking this as any woman would, she gets mad and runs off. Probably to Hoojah, who we see lurking in the jungle behind them.
So armed with their spears, lances, and bows and arrows, the humans of Pellucidar traverse toward the entrance to Mahar City. Dia has followed, but is hanging back a safe distance.
The Sagoth assemble to get orders from the Mahar. Ra and the doctor enter the small tunnel that is the way to the incubator. Hoojah is just outside. Dia, observing from a safe distance, sees him getting caught by the Sagoth. Now we're in that small tunnel again, where Ra and the doctor are moving quietly and carefully through the molten hot tunnel. They're pursued by Dia, though. Dr. Perry and Ra hang back for a second. They want to capture their pursuer, but the doctor apologizes when he realizes it's just Dia.
Dia tells them that she saw Hoojah the Sly One being captured by the Sagoth, and he will probably betray them. So Dr. Perry says that they need to get moving on their mission. So the three of them attempt to sneak past the main Mahar chamber. When they reach the fire curtain, one of the Mahar blinks, alerting the Sagoth to their presence. Dr. Perry and Dia are taken, but Ra is able to escape down another corridor.
The Mahar wake up the Sagoth in time to open the drawbridge, cutting David off from most of the other tribesmen and his support. A Sagoth attacks Ra, but he's able to overcome it. More Sagoth fight David and his crew. We're cutting back and forth between two scenes here, by the way. A lot. Ra manages to open the gate and is able to close it again before any Sagoth get through.
But as he does so, one of the Sagoth comes from behind him and stabs him in the back.
He is able to release it, though. The drawbridge comes down, and the tribesmen are able to go over it. But then Ra has to fight more Sagoth. Somehow he manages to hold his own, though.
Now that the fire curtain has been closed, David is reunited with the tribesmen, and they continue looking for the Mahar. But where they're at, things are quiet.
Ra inches his way to the incubator, as does the Sagoth. David reaches a gate of some kind. Back with Ra, he's reaching for a rope, and I assume this is critical. The Sagoth is reaching for him.
Dr. Perry and Dia have been brought back into the main chamber with the Mahar. The Mahar start singing their mind-numbing song.
One of them opens their weird green eyes, and the doctor says, "You can't mesmerize me, I'm British." The familiar siren call goes out, and Dr. Perry's eye goes all wonky. I think they got him. The fine bit of acting from Peter Cushing here. Ra finally manages to pull that rope, and the incubator is flooded with hot lava.
Now Dia is responding to the Mahar's song. She starts walking toward the Mahar, and now everything just happens all at once. David sees this and yells out, "Dia!" and he starts breaking down the gate between him and the Mahar chamber.
Then the Mahar start to charge, or fly, I guess, with the tribesmen filling them full of arrows, and one of them bursts into flames.
And one by one, the Mahar fall to the ground and explode into a ball of fire.
Back where Ra is, the incubator explodes, and this causes Dia to finally come to, and she screams.
David goes to Dia and brings her out of the Mayhar's trance. Now the whole place is going up in flames and explosions.
This is the final Mayhar attack. One of Ra's people throws David a spear, and he fights the Mayhar, trying to keep Dia and Doc Perry safe as he does. This battle goes on for a while until the Mayhar are mortally wounded. The last one hits the cabin floor and detonates like a warhead. And then everybody starts scrambling away as the place starts to really crumble to bits.
Dr. Perry is able to grab David's pocket watch on the way out, and as everyone is rushing out, the walls are crumbling all around them. David stops. He wants to go back for Ra, but Dr. Perry says it's too late for him, and he and Dia pull David out. Inside, we see Hoojah, the sly one, backing away from the flames and crumbling walls, and right into the waiting jaws of a Mastanosaurus. From a safe vantage point, then, David, Dr. Perry, and Dia watch as the Mayhar city explodes.
They say a heartfelt goodbye to Ra, but seconds later, we're having a party.
It's a real celebration. David and Dr. Perry are dressed in their traveling clothes, and Dia stands nearby. David announces to the crowd that, as is custom to the people of Pellucidar, he shall be taking Dia as his bride.
But through tears, Dia says that her place is here. She would be lost in his world. David is really sad at this turn of events, and she's crying too. She kisses her medallion and she hands it to him.
David hates to see her go, but he likes watching her leave. So David and Dr. Perry go back inside the iron mole, power it up, and burrow their way back to the surface.
They start boring.
They resurface in America, in front of the White House.
To the consternation of the guards on duty, who run back and forth for no reason that I can tell.
They run around aimlessly as the end credits roll past them.
And that's the end.
You are listening to the American International Podcast, where we're discussing At the Earth's Core from 1976.
Allegedly, Sam Markoff took a look at the first week gross of The Land That Time Forgot, and he called Max Rosenberg to commission a sequel. Now, whether or not that actually happened, Amicus by then had a follow-up film in the works. A June 1975 Hollywood Reporter article stated that the film was a sequel to The Land That Time Forgot, but that was an error on their part. The article also said that principal photography would commence in summer 1975 at Shepperton Studios in England. Filming was subsequently moved to the more expansive Pinewood Studios and began in January of 1976.
Subotsky, perhaps in anticipation of another film based on Rice's work, had a script already written based on his At the Earth's Core, which was initially published as a serial in 1914.
It took 7 stages at Pinewood to recreate Pellucidar. By now, Subotsky had left Amicus, so John Dark took over production duties. He reassembled the team from The Land That Time Forgot, except for the effects supervisor position. Neither Roger Meeks nor Derek Meddings were available, so the job went to Ian Wingrove, who had worked for Meddings on The Land That Time Forgot.
The film was made on a budget, reportedly of $400,000 to $500,000. The Trailers from Hell video about At the Earth's Core indicates the budget was $1.5 million. And even though Wingrove was a talented craftsman, he was responsible for the effects in Dark Crystal and Alien vs. Predator. This budget did not allow him much freedom. Thus, the movie uses creatures that are obviously stuntmen in rubber costumes in the close-ups and animated models in the background.
Kevin Connor later recalled the differences between the production of At the Earth's Core compared to The Land That Time Forgot. He said, quote, "We tried to get the beasts bigger so as to interact better with the actors, more one-on-one. We had a somewhat bigger budget thanks to the success of Land. The beasts were specifically designed so that small stunt guys could work inside the suits in a crouched position and on all fours. Needless to say, it was very cramped and the stunt guys had to take frequent breathers. Some worked better than others, but we were experimenting and trying something different."
Some of the scenes from the book had to be changed for the movie, mostly due to the smaller budget. For example, a scene where David saves Ra from a sea serpent had to be changed to him battling a Venus flytrap instead. The movie also has the natives speaking perfect English rather than their own language, as they did in the book.
The creatures inhabiting Pellucidar include a proto-humanoid like Homo habilis or Paranthropus. That's the Sagoth. They're the furry servants of the Mayhars who are lighter in build than a gorilla. We also have the Inostransevia, which is the Lato. The Mastodonsaurus in the movie is a fire-breathing amphibian. Megacerops, also known as Brontotherium, one of those dueling creatures that's a bipedal razorback. In the movie, it incorrectly has a pair of horns on its head and razor-sharp teeth. As we said, the giant parrot thing was a Psittacosaurus, and the Mayhar are Rhamphorhynchus. But here, incorrectly, they have a bird-like beak, dragon-like wings, and they're as large as an oversized vulture.
At the Earth's Core premiered at the Marble Arch Odeon in London on July 15, 1976, and in the U.S. on September 1st, 1976, which was the 101st birthday of Edgar Rice Burroughs, not that he was alive to celebrate it.
Box Office magazine suggested theater owners, quote, prepare a vehicle simulating the Iron Mole from the movie. End quote. I guess theater owners are quite handy and they have really big prop budgets.
In the press book for At the Earth's Core, prepared by American International Pictures, they recommended theater owners obtain a giant weather balloon, paint on longitude and latitude lines, fill it with helium, and fly it over the theater before and during the run of the film. Doing the promotions for AIP movies alone sounds like a full-time job. On a smaller scale, it was also suggested that regular-sized balloons be released, and anyone who found one and brought it to the theater could receive a free pass to the show.
Any bird that found one could choke and die. They also offered the idea of putting up cutouts or blown-up photos of the many creatures of Pellucidar, and they included some goofy descriptions for each beast. For what they called a Mosops in the press book, they wrote, it either smokes too much or has an internal combustion problem. Not recommended for taking home as a coffee table cigarette lighter. The customs people might object.
For the Mahar, the suggested copy reads, rulers of Pellucidar land at the center of the earth. These female birds, which look like lizards, can read your mind. Like most women, they sit on their perches and then swoop on their prey. Never take one home to meet mother.
Excuse me? Taglines for this movie include, they're in it deep now.
See the giant bows, lizard-like behemoths with poisoned fangs. See the brutal Sagoths, animal-faced soldiers of Pellucidar. See the vicious Mahars, bird women who feed on human flesh.
An adventure beyond any ever filmed.
Take the most terrifying journey of your life, 4,000 miles to the center of the earth, to a world within our world, peopled by creatures beyond your wildest nightmares.
In Great Britain, this film was the 18th most popular movie of 1976. In the US, it debuted at number 8 in box office returns, and it stayed in the top 10 for 2 weeks. The movie ultimately grossed $3.2 million.
British press reaction was generally positive. Time Out called it daft enough to enjoy if you are in a schoolboy mood. The Daily Mail proclaimed it a first-rate science fiction romp. The special effects are glorious, and the ending is ironic enough to please adults.
In the United States, though, critics were a bit less forgiving. The New York Times took a very dim view of the special effects, not to mention the acting, writing, and direction of At the Earth's Core. The critic wrote, quote, all the money used to make At the Earth's Core seems to have been spent on building monsters with parrot-like beaks that open, close, and emit a steady squalling, as if someone were vacuuming next door. Close up, the monsters look like sections of rough concrete wall, and the decision to film them in close-up is only one example of the total lack of talent or effort with which this film was made.
That review also called the film a kind of no-talent competition in which the acting, the script, the direction, and the camera work vie for last place. The monsters will scare small children. On the other hand, they will hardly convince larger children. Perhaps vacuum cleaners would enjoy it.
Roger Ebert's review mocked the movie's premise, saying, Doug and the professor step out into this sinister underworld, which is filled with telepathic giant parrots, and the next thing you know, they're on the chain gang. The chain gang spends all day breaking up rocks. You wouldn't think there'd be a rock shortage at the Earth's core, but there you are. Doug and the professor sneak around one strange man-eating vegetable, and there's another one, which is the original vegetable, photographed from a new angle. Meanwhile, the telepathic parrots wander by, opening and closing their beaks by spring action.
But Box Office magazine called the film pure escapist fare. With so many films dealing with outer space, this story offers an interesting contrast. That review did ding the routine script and direction from Subotsky and Connor, though.
In the movie An American Werewolf in London, made in 1980, the sound that the Nazi werewolves make is the cry of the Mahars.
At the Earth's Core was part of a notorious German series called Schlafaz in 2020. Schlafaz is a German abbreviation meaning the worst films ever. In that series, two hosts present the whole flick and make fun of it throughout the movie. It was also featured as the movie Rift in the season finale of the revived Mystery Science Theater 3000 in 2017.
And it's the second time in 2 weeks we've had one of those movies. Notable cast appearances for At the Earth's Core acting crew include Doug McClure, who played David Innes, who appeared in The Land That Time Forgot in 1974, and would go on to appear in the similarly titled The People That Time Forgot in 1976.
Peter Cushing, who played Dr. Abner Perry, had previously appeared in Scream and Scream Again in 1970, The Vampire Lovers also in 1970, Dr. Phibes Rises Again in 1972, and Madhouse in 1974.
Carolyn Munro, who played Dia, was in The Abominable Dr. Phibes in 1971 in an uncredited role as Mrs. Phibes. She also appeared in Dr. Phibes Rises Again in 1972, again uncredited. She was also in The Devil Within Her in 1975 and the AIP produced Star Crash in 1978.
Godfrey James, who portrayed Ghak, the elder slave, had previously appeared in The Conqueror Worm in 1968, The Oblong Box in 1969, Cry of the Banshee in 1970, and The Land That Time Forgot in 1974.
Keith Barron, who played Dowsett, the guy who made a bet with David Innes, was in The Land That Time Forgot in 1974 as well.
Robert Gillespie, who played the photographer, would appear in Force 10 to Navarone in 1978.
Bobby Parr, who was the Sagoth chief, was in I Am a Groupie, a Trans-American film from 1970. He was also in Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde in 1971 and The Land That Time Forgot in 1974.
So, Cheryl, that's all we were able to dig up on At the Earth's Core, with the exception of our own opinions. So why don't you tell me what you thought of this movie using our AIP scale, where A is awesome, I is intermediate, and P is pathetic.
2 weeks ago, if you follow this podcast, you know that we did an episode on Reptilicus, which I graded as pathetic, chiefly due to the cheapo special effects, although there was actually more to it. I expected more of the same from At the Earth's Core. After all, both movies were riffed on Mystery Science Theater 3000, both in the same season even, so they both have to be equally bad, right? Well, that's where my head was when I was prepared to watch this movie. But somehow I think I had it all wrong. And not because Reptilicus wasn't really all that bad, despite your glowing review, Jeff. I still don't like it. But I think I was wrong about At the Earth's Core. There's really a lot to like about this movie. First of all, Peter Cushing is a delight as the Daffy Duck Perry. He's brainy and brave and willing to fight for what he believes in. And he's really funny in this film. And that's not what I'm used to when I see Peter Cushing in a movie, the kind that he usually does. I really like Doug McClure in this movie. The way I remembered him was as a blustery, egotistical character, but he's not like that at all here. He's humble and helpful, and he's willing to fight the big stupid dinosaurs single-handedly to free a bunch of people that he just met. Caroline Munro as Dia could definitely have used a more developed character. She kind of was the damsel in distress here. But I think she really nailed it at the end of the movie. She had to refuse to join David up on Earth's surface because her people needed her there. I think both actors really conveyed the heartbreak they felt in that short little scene, and honestly, it kind of moved me. I really liked Cy Grant as Ra. From the rest of the cast, I think he was the standout. If only he didn't have to wear that wig. And it's really too bad he died at the end because I was really invested in his character and I wanted him to make it. I read some books when I was researching this movie, and one of them quotes Caroline Munro as saying the experience of making this movie was a lot of fun, chiefly because of Peter Cushing, who kept everything light on set. And I think that really comes through when you watch the movie. Now, do I think the rubber-suited monsters, their rear-projected parrots, and exploding dinosaurs are exemplary special effects? No, of course they're not. But that's what a low budget will get you, and from what I read, they did the best they could. They tried to do in-camera effects wherever possible to save money and time, I guess. Movies today are mostly CGI, with just some actors acting against a green screen. But this movie has real stuff in it. Everything you see on screen is an actual thing, and that's a nice change of pace. Now, one thing I didn't like in this movie was how the character of Hoojah was portrayed. I hope it's only in my imagination that Hoojah the Sly One looks very stereotypically Jewish. I hope that wasn't the intent, even unspoken, of the filmmakers. I don't know, though. But I can still watch this movie and enjoy it for what it is. At the Earth's Core has an inventive story, and the pace is quick and action-packed. I watched many a film like this as a kid on lazy Saturday afternoons in front of the TV, getting WGN out of Chicago. And this one takes me back to those days. It also made me remember old school Doctor Who adventures, which honestly had even worse special effects, but nobody cared. I didn't critique what I watched back then, I just went along for the ride. And I did the same here. This was a fun ride, and I'm giving it an A. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, At the Earth's Core is a movie that I've seen several times over the last few decades. And while I wouldn't consider it to be one of my go-to films if I'm looking for something familiarly comfortable to watch, it's certainly one that I don't mind revisiting from time to time. If I had to pick one aspect of At the Earth's Core that really stands out to me, it wouldn't be the presence of Caroline Munro, but that's a close second. To me, it's Peter Cushing's performance as flighty Dr. Abner Perry. I'm so used to seeing him playing things straight, even in the most absurd of situations. It's really fun to see him play a character with a little more character. It's a somewhat farcical performance, and while I could do without the occasional fainting spells, I think Dr. Perry's character is what keeps the movie lively and also keeps it from becoming a dirge at times. And I say that because there are some rather lengthy sequences where not much is happening. And when they do happen, they don't occur at opportune times to heighten suspense. Instead, they just prolong the action. We're just over a year into this podcast, but already we've talked about so many films where the intended comic relief does nothing but induce groans. But in this case, we have an accomplished and capable actor making a believable and likable character that a lesser actor would have just turned into a clown. And the character of Dr. Perry deserves better than that. But I'm not going to grade At the Earth's Core solely by the performance of one actor. I'll admit that I'm not familiar with the source material. I've never read anything by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I know that he created Tarzan and John Carter, and I've seen a few Tarzan movies, and I watched DR. But his science fiction always seemed a little suspect to me.
I think you should leave it in. Someone else will get it.
It seems to me Burroughs was no Jules Verne, which I have read. But I will say that if this is any indication, the Burroughs stories certainly do translate well to cheesy drive-in cinematic fun. And one last thing I want to comment on is the creatures. These days, they would no doubt all be created by CGI. And I've always had a love for rubber-suited monsters. And with apologies to Toho, I think the monsters here work much better than they do in the standard Godzilla movie. And I was thinking about it, and I think the reason for that is because these creatures are all human-sized, more or less. In a Godzilla movie, we not only have to buy the Godzilla creature, we also have to buy that the obviously toy boat he capsized has innocent people aboard. And that house that crumbles like tissue paper when he tramples it, we have to buy that it's a real house. But we don't have to carry that burden here. Well, maybe a little. A few of the creatures are still a little larger than life. The Psittacosaurus has to employ a rear projection so Peter Cushing can wave his umbrella at it. And the Megacerops picks up a guy, which immediately turns into a doll. But this all occurs fairly early in the film, and from that point on, it's all Inostravencia, Mastodonsaurus, and Mahar, and they're all the size of a fully grown human male. And as a bonus, anytime one of these creatures touches the ground, they explode into a massive fireball.
I love that.
These things can't cheat when playing The Floor is Lava. Going into At the Earth's Core, and my being already familiar with it, I had an idea where my grade was going to fall. But I surprised myself by enjoying it far more than I expected to. Maybe it just caught me on a generous week, but I am also giving At the Earth's Core an A.
Well, we're back on track.
So I think we've completely unearthed this episode on At the Earth's Core.
So should we bury it?
No, but I think it's time to say goodbye. You're listening to the American International Podcast. This is Jeff Markin.
And this is Cheryl Lightfoot.
And we'll meet you at the drive-in. Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.